and welcome to edumate.tv. I'm CHETAN SHARMA. We learn to live and live to learn in what has turned out to be an unprecedented situation, an unprecedented pandemic, with history being written across the geography of Mother Earth. And a minor virus has created a major catastrophe, making each and every one of us rewind, rethink, reformat, reboot before we rebuild a new future, a new normal. In the world of higher education, particularly, if there's one trait that's required to overcome these challenges, as well as find solutions, and more importantly, to create opportunities, it's got to be the trait of wisdom. Wisdom emanating from past experience, past knowledge, but wisdom also to be able to expect, embrace, and evolve the new future. And that's why we have our very wise Chancellor. Today we have a very special guest with us, joining us from Dehradun, from the DIT University. We've got Professor KULDEEP RAINA. What a pleasure to have you, sir, with us on edumate.tv.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sharma.
Let's start with the tough times. I mean, tough times call for tough action. It requires tough administrators like yourself. So how tough have you been in overcoming these tough times?
Mr. Sharma, you see, when we are in an administrative post, I always believe the chair is always alone and you have to take people along with you. I think it is the endeavor and the vision of the university or the institution for which you work, how we create that different thought process. I would like to just briefly say that DIT has a tagline, imagine, aspire and achieve. And this is what every day comes to my thought. We are imagining something, we are aspiring to achieve that. And for this, I think achievement is where we have to reach the pinnacle of excellence. Under these circumstances, yes, none of us were mentally prepared and physically too, because what was seen that it is going to come and go. But suddenly in the month of March, looking at how our counterparts in different developed nations have gone through, are we prepared or not? But we are committed to our stakeholders, where students are the prime importance to each one of us in academia especially. And we have to see their career, their future, their aspirations and hopes for their own lives. And it is not only our students, their families. I think it was a larger ensemble of student community, their families, who were looking at us with great hopes. We started our normal academic session through online mode of teaching. It started by around 25th or 26th of March. It took us about 5 days at least. So our commitment that we will teach you, it is a university for learners. We try to fulfill our commitment to the best possible way we could do under the circumstances.
But I know for a fact through a bit of research that you've been an outstanding administrator, Dr. RAINA. I also know that you've been a brilliant teacher. But I want to know how good a learner you have been in this very unique environment. So tell us what have been your learnings?
Yeah, Mr. Sharma, absolutely. You know, I start my day being a teacher. I'm a lifelong learner first. Even going to the class and teaching, whether it is at undergraduate, postgraduate, or research scholars, we have to prepare ourselves to reach the student community. So here too, you see, the face-to-face teaching, classroom teaching, got a shift. How equipped we are to connect to the largest segment of the student population through this online mode, or I would say I put it as a remote learning mode, was not that easy. So the learning started from there itself. We have privileges because band connectivity, bandwidth is not an issue at all. And having a wonderful infrastructure, it was not a concern from my end or my colleagues' end. But our concern was those who come from the hilly terrains where bandwidth and electricity, both are the issues. Having the smartphones which have that many capabilities where you can read, learn, and respond was also a concern. And at DIT University, Mr. Sharma, our 60% students come from outside the state of Uttarakhand. So how is the connectivity there? Pandemic created its own chaotic situations at times. No rail, no air. So these were the issues. But to me, it was a wonderful learning. And in my lifetime, it is the first such experience that I have seen that it is the global lockdown. It was not only in India.
Right.
So we could reach to larger segment of students. And what we try to do is, one of the greatest learning experiences was connecting students almost one-to-one in many cases. What difficulty you have with respect to the hardware? Are you having the proper bandwidth or not? We conducted a couple of webinars with them on various platforms, and that created an ecosystem as a learning capability building amongst those who at times were thinking probably it is beyond our reach. At the same time, Mr. Sharma, our faculty, we had to also give them a kind of training, how you can use your platforms for remote learning. And they also supported the move. And I think it has been a happy beginning and happy learning for each one of us.
How wonderful and how reassuring. Thank you for that, Dr. Raina. You mentioned one distinct advantage which your state has, of a good bandwidth, which again is very heartening. I'll mention one more advantage and one perhaps challenge. I'd like your insight on that. Well, one big advantage, of course, is that the Minister of HRD, now of course the Minister of Education, belongs to your state, has then benefited Uttarakhand and Dehradun in a special manner. That's my question number one. Question number two is, when you mentioned about a lot of your students coming from outside the state, the trend that's developing in the COVID environment is that people are tending to stick to their states. They don't want to go out necessarily. So has that been a disadvantage and a challenge?
First question, Honorable HRD Minister, Shri Prokhyalji. No doubt he comes from the state of Uttarakhand. The Haridwar is his constituency, but he's the Union Education Minister now and has been the Human HRD Minister. I think for him, every segment, every part of the country is very, very important. It is basically the infrastructure and his blessings that Uttarakhand is doing better. One. Number two, when it comes to the second question about the students aspiring, you see, education has no boundaries. I think even before COVID, there were very, very challenging situations, especially those who are the meritorious students. They always try to find the best place to study, whether it is across the continents. Crossing 7 seas has never been any impediment for the Indian people. We have gone. So similarly, in this era too, it is a phase. I don't consider it's going to be a many, many years. I think in the next couple of months, situation is going to be much, much better than it is today. That despite all those challenges within this coming couple of months, we are connecting with the students who are aspiring also to get admission here. Right. Each student aspires to come to our university, and Dehradun has been the hub of learning for the last 200 years. I think Dehradun has been, I would say, the pivot in the northern part, but in the global community too. So we have the wonderful schools, and DIT University is making it into the best of the higher education institutions in this part of the country.
And with good reason and with good leadership, Dr. Raina, might I add. So talk us through the university itself. What is the vision? And tell us a little bit more about Dr. K.K. Raina and his life career thus far.
It is almost now around 35 years. I have been a learner. Prior to that, it was my own education, had been a learner there too. I am a senior citizen. So in that capacity, my lifetime has gone into learning. And have said and have read a bit of physics and then certain technologies as well. I say I'm a transducer, converting my knowledge into the practical aspect of the future generations. I have been doing so since 1985, 1986, when I came into the teaching profession. Prior to joining DIT University, I spent nearly 3 decades at Thapar University in Patiala and moved there from to this place for the last 6 years now. Plus, I came across brilliant students, the brilliant minds on this campus. I think that touched my heart and soul. I continue to be here with them. As academic administrator, the situations are different when you come from the corporate administration systems, because we are the nursery of creating talent and nurturing the talent on the campus pool. So my personal association and students across it has been like that only. I always admire that and appreciate whom I have taught before, and now even today. I spend my time with the students across, go to the halls of residence and see that how they are doing. It is their motivation that makes me and keeps me young, energetic and thoughtful. And I know, Mr. Sharma, that education is never tiring. It rejuvenates the thought process. It rejuvenates the minds. Because at this age, when I deal with a student in the age group of 18 to 24, 25, I feel that they are giving me much tonic to stand with them, share with them and learn from them.
Truly inspiring, Dr. Raina, truly inspiring. Now, a little while back, you mentioned that, Indians have been known to cross the seas and find education across the world. I think it's time to reverse that.
Yes.
It's time to get other people from outside to cross the seas and come to India to study, in line with the self-reliant India, which the Prime Minister has envisioned. And, and in line with that also, in conjunction with that, has also been the recent announcement of the NEP, the New Education Policy. Does that fulfill every aspect of a radical change in education that you were envisioning yourself for this country?
As an academic, during my student days and thereafter too, I had a privilege of visiting almost nearly 36 countries, interacting with the scientific community, and that gave me great learning. And wherever I went, I found some Indian, and the Indian who's physically there, but his heart is with his motherland, that is India. I have been observing that what were the circumstances under which they left this country and started making the better pastures there. I think it is primarily need. They were different and they didn't want to be in the comfort zone for a long time. So they had the vision to do something different. This education policy, I would say, is a new beginning to our thought process. I am groomed and I have grown into those policies where I personally felt, could there be any kind of flexibility which is empowering the thought process of those who have a passion to do something different. This education policy, I tell you honestly, that we had a couple of deliberations online as well as offline. In fact, a lot of such deliberations were held in AICTE office in New Delhi too, where the vice chancellors and academics were asked to give their suggestions for the improvement. I would say pandemic has really given a boost to think in a different way. I think personally, this was the right time to hit the shots and bring it into the public domain. And I think I would say personally that it is a game changer. It has been appreciated by many, many like-minded people. But yes, in a democratic system, we should not go unipolar. I think to create an equilibrium, there's a great scope that we see what are the merits in this scheme. I should not go for the demerit. I think merit is where I always value, and it has given that.
So could you highlight 3 important merits which you see as game changers in the new education policy?
One thing is connecting people to their grassroots and looking at the social sector as a big responsibility for each one of us. Probably that was not the part before. Yes, India has a lot of diversity, Mr. Sharma. We have urban, rural, enriching and dividing too, but I'm sure that it will bring large young population to their grassroots in the first place. not because of language only. I think it's connecting to that. What are my social responsibilities towards the society? First. Second, this which it talks about, the credit data bank. Earlier, we used to talk about land bank, this bank and that bank, money bank. I think probably in this country, we have not have a credit bank.
Right.
You see, a brilliant mind thinks beyond at times. His vision, his curiosity to learn is, I want to do something different. And we cannot mold him on the first day to achieve this. Today's times, we are not in 1800, 1900. We are in 2020. And the people whom we are going to train now are going to be the future leaders, both in academia, corporates, and in politics at the same time. So this is going to give them a flexibility of thought process, an approach to combine and focus on where they can do much better. Then another one is very significant. It is merger of the regulators, a single regulator. I think this country needed it for a long time. I appreciate the efforts of the Ministry of Human Resource Development, the academic fraternity, who are coming forward to see that, yes, it's our responsibility now, Mr. Sharma.
Right.
People like me and many, many like me that see that how we can make its best use in our systems. But when it comes to technology era, I think considering Uttarakhand as a state, Mr. Sharma, I know we have a lot of biodiversity here. There are many challenges that the technology and the science faces here, the environment faces. Can I develop a curriculum of the sort which touches the heart and soul and the minds of the people in this part of the country, so that the migration from hills to plains and from plains going back to the hills can at some place be thought of that it is my country, it is my state, it is my region. Once we try to imbibe these things, I'm sure that the ramifications of this national education policy will see the light of the day and its implementation in the best of the spirits.
This is quite wonderful, and we all, obviously, every single citizen of this country hopes for that. I just have one challenge to delve on. This country has always been quite, with the brilliant minds that it's housed over centuries, has never been bereft of good policy, but it's always been bereft of good implementation. So where do you think the challenge could possibly lie in the implementation of this policy? Because, it's well begun is half done.
Certainly, I would say the 29th July saw that, yes, the government's intentions are for its implementation. There are two approaches to solve a problem. One is top-down and second is bottom-up. Top-down, we have seen the document is on our table, the document is on my laptop, and I do browse it and see what is best for me. At our university, I tell you, Mr. Sharma, we have already started deliberating on it, because it may not be feasible at this stage to introduce certain things in 2020 session. We have tried to highlight on, certainly, the aspects that connect the state of Uttarakhand, but not compromising on the national and the international needs. Because today we talk of, and it has been in our Vedas too, Mr. Sharma, Vasudeva Kutumbakam. This is not the narrative which I created or you are listening to me for the first time. I think it has been there since ages. And if that has been the thought process of the Indian society, Indian community, and it is a part of our legacy, I know that we have to touch the global aspects too. And the distances which were covered in a year are being covered today in month, and those which were in month are being covered in few hours.
Sure.
With this, I think Indian people have a great role to play, especially when it comes to technology, the Indianization, and propagating the brotherhood, the thought process, and the patience. I think that is where we have to live together. We are all sons of this planet, and we need to live in harmony. I think this is the message we should go. And when I look at the document, National Education Policy, I think it is touching each and most of these points. But yes, in academia, we agree to disagree, and we disagree to agree. This has been what I tell my colleagues when we sit in the boards, because it is not I, it is we who are going to make a difference.
I think that's the beauty of democracy, Dr. K.K. Raina, that we can all agree to disagree and yet coexist with mutual respect. That having been said, there has been a point of view, particularly given the dynamic situation and the unprecedents of the COVID environment, that maybe the policy could have come a few months down the line. I mean, of course, you're right to say that it was catalyzed to come in because you needed a radical change, without a doubt. But perhaps it would have been far more nuanced and understanding of the challenges to be able to make it more realistically implementable. That's one point of view. Do you agree with that?
Time and tide waits for none. I think time had come. So I would say, when we look at post-COVID and pre-COVID, now we are going to forget pre-COVID. Now it is the post-COVID.
Post-COVID.
And post-COVID is going to be different. Tell me, about a year back, had we thought that we can reach to the larger segment of student population through online? We had not imagined that, I tell you. We at DIT University, with best of the infrastructure, were using a couple of learning management systems, tools, but had not envisaged that we would reach to the student fraternity in such a way. We could do it. And I know that we have a long way and we can achieve all those successes.
Dr. K.K. Raina, true to the motto of DIT University, your thoughts have fueled our imagination. Your words have chosen to inspire us, and your actions have made it all achievable. You truly have been our wise chancellor.